It's episode 40 of the Fintech Moshpit, and we have Doug Lebda, CEO and founder of LendingTree, to discuss COVID-19's impacts on the market and community. We are here. It is episode number 40. And I have a great charlatan, a great business leader, someone to share this inaugural launch while it's episode 40 of the Fintech Moshpit. It is our first in our new platform's extension partnership with the Charlotte Business Journal. So much more. Doug, thank you so much for being that first guest for us. Let me start with you. How you doing, first of all, amidst all
I'm doing
of this?
great. I took a shower and shaved just for you. So
That's fantastic.
First time in like 2 days. So
I cannot thank you enough for doing that, my friend. So let's jump right into it. The first topic I wanted to go into was that of social good. I know very well kind of behind the scenes what you've been doing. LendingTree put $1 million contribution to kick off what many would say is arguably the most important relief fund in the history of Charlotte. Why were you so compelled to do that and spend so much of your personal time to be the first one out of the gate to set an example that's now caught fire and raised over $15 million?
Well, I think that's giving us too much credit, but one of the things we like to do at LendingTree is try to find a catalyst. And so we had the LendingTree Foundation. We launched it a couple of years ago. We were looking at new ways to do things. And we thought that giving money to people who are affected by the virus, but not infected by the virus, would be a great thing to do. So we figured if we put $1 million out there and said to other companies, do it, and partnered with the Foundation for the Carolinas, and it's worked out great.
So what do you, at the end of the day, because you've got an interesting kind of vantage point on all of these things, what compelled you though personally? Like I've seen executives, leaders, founders spend time on things and say, this is what we're going to do, everyone go. But you did that, plus you personally spent like an immense amount of time on that. What drove
it wasn't
you for
an
that?
immense amount. Well, it wasn't an immense amount of time. It was a couple days. But honestly, what compels me is really kind of the core mission of LendingTree. I mean, LendingTree came from me getting, the runaround by a couple banks and thinking that I could change things. And so it's always, how do you lift people up? How do you help people? How do you help people at the bottom rung of the ladder and actually lift themselves up? And the nonprofit community in Charlotte is great. And I think the business leaders in Charlotte should always be stepping up. And as a community, that's just what I love about Charlotte, is that everybody comes together and gets things done. So it was great for us to be the first catalyst, and I'm psyched about it, and everybody at LendingTree is psyched about it, and it's awesome to see the rest of the community step up as well.
You're constantly talking about, in normal times, upward mobility as a passion area of yours. Do you think that it's maybe a little bit out of sight, out of mind, given everything else that's going on? And do you think that its importance is actually magnified right now?
I really, really do. I mean, if you think about the most impacted people in this environment, it's the people who are cutting your hair and who are, cleaning your house and who are waiting on you at tables. And that hurts. I mean, I was there in my life, I was in college and shortly after, and you struggle, and then people are getting laid off. And this is when, but this is also when you can turn all of that into something great, where communities actually start coming together, where people start caring for each other, where you just see some great stories. And I think that's what's great about it. I think from a business side, some things are going to change. But it's been really, really neat watching people come together.
So let's transition into a little bit of the market, right? You've got a pretty unique vantage point on fintech, credit markets, things of that nature. You've been doing this for a while. You've been through a couple cycles. You've been through a few, crises as well. What are you seeing? Let's just start at a high level. What are you seeing right now at a high level that's different for the last month or two than all the months before that?
So LendingTree sits in a unique position, as you said, as a marketplace, sitting between consumers looking for credit and lenders looking to provide it. And what you see at times like this is you get these big mismatches. So you have an instance where lots of small business owners right now want credit, but they can't necessarily find it. And that's something that we're actually working on in Washington right now to try to help relieve that. And if we can, we're going to also do some stuff on our own in the next few days. In the mortgage business right now, you have people flowing in for refinances and lenders can't necessarily keep up with the volume. However, in the credit card business, you have the exact opposite. You have credit card companies that are tightening up and consumers that, maybe are in a tough spot. So I think we're going to have so it's all different. And in these times are the times when companies can really gain share, when they can really look at innovation, when you can actually calm down and make sure that things are solid, because everything changes. And behind the scenes, there's just a lot of action, but there's also a lot of opportunity. But right now, basically what you have is people looking for money, and it's hard to make those matches.
So you struck on something that I've been thinking a lot about, and I just want to know kind of your more detailed take on it. There's two kinds of people, and I'm sure there's a lot of executives on this call.
There's only two kinds?
Well, there's only two. Everyone knows there's only two kinds of people in this world. And from the list of people that are watching, from executives to entrepreneurs to startup founders, and the list goes on, one kind is good leaders, but in times like this, they kind of like, all right, how do we muscle our way through this storm? How do we kind of batten down the hatches and make sure that we survive and exist after this? And I'm not saying there's not places for that mentality at times, but there's another kind, which is like, this is terrible, this is painful, but I'm viewing this like I'm waking up every morning on fire, and this is an opportunity,
right.
An opportunity to do something. What do you think about that kind of multiple mindset and how it applies in this time right now?
You talking as a company or as a person?
Let's go as a person. Just speak as
okay.
Doug.
So and I think actually they both work, because I think if your base is solid, then you can innovate. So for example, if you're a person and your finances are fine at home, like you've still got a job, now's the time when you can call your boss and say, hey, I've got this great new idea and I know it's a tough time, but let's really go for it. And now's also the time when you can develop relationships with people that actually will then be meaningful in the long run. So if you're, in sales or in marketing, whatever, now's the time when you can actually come together and forge real partnerships, because everybody's open to them and everybody's also moving quickly to try to do things. Now's the time when you can, I've even said to somebody the other day, now's the time when I think everybody should almost take a new look at their finances from a company standpoint, or even from an individual standpoint. We're all probably spending 50% less than we did 3 months ago. Well, maybe when things come back, we spend 20% more and put the other 30% in the bank, or use the 30% for investment. So I think a lot of things are going to change like that. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I guess let me go one level deeper then, because there's a lot of people out there, I'm sure, that fit that kind of category that you're saying, where like, if your risk appetite can handle it, go for it, right? Innovate now. But I find a lot of other people that maybe in normal times, their risk appetite can't handle that. But if they don't do something now, maybe they're not realizing it, like there's not going to be a risk appetite because they're going to go down. And I'm even thinking a lot of the small businesses that we talk to every day, like, should a small business be like on fire to say, you know what, I understand this is how I've operated before. This could ruin everything for me if I make this pivot, but I got to trust my gut. Like, how do they trust their gut?
So I'm teaching an entrepreneurship class at UVA on Monday, but a lot of things that entrepreneurs think about is not even so much risk taking, it's the affordable loss. So if you can afford the time and whatever it is, sometimes it's money. For me, it was time. When I started LendingTree, I said, I'm going to give it 1 year. So if you can afford the time, the energy, the money, and now's the time when you can look to barter, you can do different things, you can do it differently. Another thing I would encourage people to do right now is to enlist your employees. So that's actually one way to pivot, is to empower and ask your employees to, what are the new ideas? Like what could we change? Should we, change a new product? Should we reduce our products? And you could actually ask them for ideas, and enlist them. You can change your compensation plans. You can change anything you want in this environment.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up employees. So there's probably a lot of CEOs and execs sitting on this podcast right now, struggling with, what is it that I say to them? What is it that I inspire them with? I think a lot of people's employees are showing up every day right now, and they're just
not showing
unsure.
up yet,
but they're showing up in their home with a nice top on and then shorts gym shorts on. But I guess, like, how would you guide them? And maybe more specifically, like, what do you say to your LendingTree employees right now?
So number one, you have to over communicate. I've got we can put it up later. I have like 27 points of how to deal in a financial crisis. You have to over communicate. You have to think of this from your employees' perspective. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried about their bonuses. They're worried about, what are they worried about? And another great entrepreneurial thing that I always say is you have to be able to walk in somebody's shoes with deep and great empathy. So this is when you can do that with your employees. And the other thing, and I even said it, this is where you turn lemons into lemonade. Another great entrepreneurial concept is, I said to our HR team the other day, I said, this is when you get to see everybody, how they're going to operate in a crisis. You get to see how they're going to operate under pressure. You get to see how they're going to organize their time. You're going to see who's going to step up, who's not going to step up. And you get to, really see people. This is when we can develop people. This is when people are open to being developed, this is when a lender's open up to a new relationship. This is when your food vendors open up to, cutting your price or extending your terms from 60 days to 90 days. This is when you can reset a lot of things inside of your company.
So are you saying?
And so what I'm telling our people to do is, stay safe. And once you're safe, your job, and then your health is safe. Your job is safe. Let's go look for opportunities. We've made some changes in our comp plans and changes in our bonus plans that we're going to roll out. And it's funny, I'm hearing in pockets of areas of our company that people are actually more productive. And that's where I think this is for industries. There is going to be a big change in a lot of industries, and I'm not quite sure where it's going to shake out. I don't think any of us do, but I think there are going to be some emerging winners out of this. And I think there are going to be a whole bunch of industries that are going to go through some challenging times.
So just to make sure I fully comprehended that, because I think I do, but I just want to make sure everyone follows that. Are you saying that in a time of crisis like this, while if you're a founder or CEO or top exec at a small or large company, your tendency might be to focus all on revenue, all on clients, and not really focus on employees? If you're smaller, if you're larger, maybe hand that off a little more to HR and things like that. Are you saying that no matter what, that's an investment you have to make?
I think and it sounds trite, your people are your biggest asset. Like if your financial balance sheet is sound, assuming, then you move to your people. And then now is when you can fire them up and get them excited to look for new things, or to look for adjacencies, or to cut costs, or to, help implement new processes. All the things that in a normal time when you're running and gunning and you don't have time to fix them, now not only can you fix them. So I said this to our employees the other day. I said, everything you've wanted to change at LendingTree that you felt has been resistant by whomever, they are now going to be 50 to 100% more willing to embrace that change. So go change it. I mean, it could be as simple as a process in your restaurant, or your terms on your payables and receivables, or whatever it is, or how you're going to scrap, or how you're going to judge employees. These are the times that you assuming things are sound, that you can actually go find opportunities.
Man, I love that. And I would say that's got to be a huge call to action for anyone out there. Like, it's terrible, but it's also a time where it isn't like this every day. Right. You can go after something. Let me ask you this.
Totally. And the other thing I would say too is positive recognition really matters, and making sure in the over communication that you're really calling out individual people and individual things that are happening at your company with your people to say, this person did a great job. Look what they've done. Do that too. And so if you're over communicating and you're making sure that you're calling out the positives that are happening, you can really start to get the ball rolling.
Man, let me just take you up on that call to action now. To my team, I know I've been a little run and gun and focused. I thank you for all the work you've done. Maybe everyone out there can remember to do that a little bit, because you can really get wrapped up in everything going on, the opportunity and challenges.
And the other thing that'll happen, you have to get rest. You have to take care of yourself. I mean, if you're fighting a war, right, you can't fight 24/7 for 6 days in a row. You got to make sure that your people are getting rest, and you got to make sure that they can take time off. Like, you take a day off every week, turn off the phone, go for a walk, and go think and dream and do some other things. But now's a time when you spend time with your family and build new relationships, etc. But at the same time, you have to make sure you can't go 24 hours a day.
So, all right. So, are you getting enough rest?
I am.
You
and
are.
The key thing is, you can't worry. You got to get rid of worry in your life, I think, because it worrying doesn't really change the outcome. So you actually, in the fog of war, you need to try to be able to calm down, think about things rationally.
What are your tactics?
Try to get as much data as you can.
That's easier said than done. What are you and I have talked about this in the past, right? Those thoughts that are in your mind and they're just keeping you up. They're stressing you out. We've heard it from David Chadwick and others. How do you deal with that?
It's hard for me particularly because I start getting good ideas late at night when things kind of wind down from work. And then, so the big thing for me is I'll write things down. If you looked around my office, there's pieces of paper everywhere. And then I wake up in the morning and then I take some time and see if it was stupid or not. And then if it was a dumb one, I throw it out. And if it was good, then I send it to somebody or we do something about it. But, it's about a 50-50 shot, but that's the way we do things. So
two final questions for you. One, tell us a little bit more about, I'm sure there's a ton of people intrigued by this. I don't remember how many it was, like 27-point plan or something like that for financial crisis. What was it? Tell us a little more about that.
20. I have a group of friends. We meet together and we talked about business. It's my YPO forum. And I wrote, since this is my fourth financial crisis, and I've made every mistake in the book, I wrote down on about 3 pieces of paper everything that you need to think of in a financial crisis, and we've hit a number of them here, and there's a few more. And for example, scenario planning. You got to plan for all scenarios. Taking care of your people, positive recognition. You got to lead. You really need to think about leading. You need to think about how habits are going to change post this and how that's going to affect your business, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's and I wrote it almost for myself to make sure I remembered how to stay calm and not freak out, because I've as I said, I've made every mistake in the book, and this time we've got this one down. Knock on wood.
So that just made me think of an interesting angle. Is the difference between someone like me at the bottom of the rung and you at the top?
You're the bottom. Yeah,
is the difference that I write to-do lists and you write like rules of operating? Is there something there? Because
I write a to-do list too.
But you also have like mission lists of like, don't forget these kind of principles in your day-to-day. Am I hearing you right?
It depends. So I like to solve problems, and the way I solve problems, I start with thinking like, who do I know? Like, what is it? And then I try to distill it down to the lowest possible common denominator. And it was batting around in my head as I was listening to a bunch of people say, well, this is going on in my business. This is what's going on. I'm batting down the hatches. I've got to lay people off and blah, 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 blah. And I sat there and said, how do you turn lemons into lemonade in this? And how can I remember what I've learned in the last 3 crises? I mean, we went public 2 weeks before the market crashed in 2000, then went through 9/11 and then 2008. And so this is number 4, which is why my hair is more gray than yours. And so I wanted to write down for myself what you have to do. And another key one is, I think you got to think about a pivot. And you've got, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you've got built up assets, not just your money and your assets, but you know things, you know people, et cetera. And it's okay to pivot your business in a slightly different direction. And the market will tell you where you need to go. So your customers will tell you, your suppliers will tell you, and then you just look for those commonalities and you go for it.
We're getting great feedback and things from social media, from those on the panel, from YouTube and others. Someone really liked Michael Clegg from QWorks Group, loved your term affordable loss earlier on. Great word, and loved that thought process. Aubrey Hawes from Oracle wants to know what's up with the Steelers shirt. Clearly he didn't know that much about your background and the fact that you're deep there. Here's my final question to you, and I really appreciate you coming on. Where does all this go? What does the new normal look like whenever that time comes? And then until we get there, what's your favorite, because you always have great analogies, great kind of advice and guidance whenever I need it. What's your analysis during a crisis? What's your biggest kind of like the best thing you've heard of like crisis time, and where does this all end?
All right. I don't know about the second one. All right. The first one. So I said habits are going to change, and this is just Doug riffing. I think people are going to, and this is coming from more financial literacy angle, I think people are going to, for example, realize that you can have 3 people at your house with a 6-pack of beer, and maybe you don't need to go to a bar. Maybe you don't need, 2 cars, maybe you only need 1, or you don't need 3, maybe you need 2. And that worries me a little bit from an economic standpoint, and it encourages me a lot from a financial stability standpoint of people. And so a lot of that is going to change. And I think some of it for the good, particularly in medical care. I think if you think about, I just took my daughter to the doctor yesterday and nobody's there, and we still sat for 40 minutes, and I'm going, Domino's Pizza can tell you when your pizza's going to arrive, but you still sit in there. They go, the doctor will be in 5 minutes, and it's 15 minutes later. Like, really? Like in a COVID environment, you're all sitting there with masks in this little stupid room. And that would be another thing I would say to entrepreneurs. It's one of my heroes, Jim Collins, told me a story about LL Bean. And he said, wet feet make boots. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? And I think this will go to your second point. And he said, LL Bean went hunting. And this was him telling me that you don't need to have an idea to start a business. He said, LL Bean went hunting, and a lot of other people went hunting, and they all got wet feet. And LL Bean made boots. So all you got to do is look for the wet feet moments and then go make boots. And that's how I distill entrepreneurship down to its basics.
Well, that is, I knew you'd come up with one. I didn't even prep you for any of that. I knew just like that, you'd come up with some solid moment of gold. So
I tried.
You are somebody that obviously we all think a lot of in our community, one of our hometown heroes. Really appreciate you spending the time coming on here. Hopefully everyone got some good takeaways from this. Me, it's just that it's wet feet season, man.
You're the best wet feet make boots guy I've ever met. So well done.
We appreciate you so much. Doug Lebda, CEO and founder of LendingTree, and a great entrepreneur and just member of our community. That was episode 40 of the Fintech Moshpit. Doug, we appreciate you being on, my friend.
And if I can ever help anybody, Doug at LendingTree.com, and I'm open for anything. So
amazing. You are
great to talk to you, Tariq.